How you guys doing?
Good. How are
Awesome.
you?
Good, good. My name is Matt DeStephanis. I'm currently a senior at Bentley, pursuing a degree in marketing and a minor in management. While those are like my degree focuses, my interests are more within like sales and specifically the healthcare industry. I've kind of decided specifically I want to go into pharma after school, maybe a pharma sales job. Greg, I'd seen on your LinkedIn that you're a DM now, but you did also that sales representative role. What would you say were like the keys to success in that role? And now as a DM, what are some of the qualities of your most successful reps?
Yeah. And what was your name again? I'm sorry.
Yeah, Matthew Stephanus.
Oh, it's nice to meet you, Matthew. Well, first, I think your question is what are the attributes to be successful? Is that what you said?
Yeah, specifically within those pharmaceutical sales rep jobs.
Yeah. Well, I think for any sales job, I think you first have to make sure that you understand your customer and understand their needs. And I know that Zev probably teaches this in your class, and it's all about asking great questions and being really inquisitive and really knowing everything there is to know about your customer before you ever try and sell them anything. So you have to really be inquisitive, I think is one thing. The other thing is you have to out hustle everybody else too. I think in so many industries, people they just want to maybe go the easy route or think that that it's you don't have to work hard, you don't have to put in the extra hours, you don't have to put in the extra effort. But just like anything else, if you want to be great at it, man, you got to out hustle everybody else, and you also got to practice a lot. Something the Texas Rangers do every single day is practice. When they're not playing, they're practicing. And think about that, right? They are pros. They know how to hit a baseball, they know how to throw a baseball, but those guys are doing it every single day to make sure that it's precise. And I think so many salespeople, what they forget to do is practice. Keep practicing your craft, keep practicing your skill. So everybody does it when they're new, but don't forget that when you move along. To be successful, I think in anything, you have to also have to have a balance, and you can't be all just work and no play. So you can't forget about that too, right? Enjoy yourself, enjoy what you're doing, and go into something that you really, really love. And if you think it's going to be pharmaceutical sales, great. But who knows? You may get into it and hate it, right? So do what you love and do what you love to do. I fell into the coaching and the management aspect of it a little bit by accident. I got laid off 4 times in this industry, so it's not for the faint of heart. So a lot of times, you fall into something, and I loved coaching, I loved developing people, and so that's how I fell into my side business. But it also really aligns really well to my district sales management, and that's really, really me being a service to the people I lead. So I actually the word manager. I would ask that my company actually change the word to, because that's what you really need to be. I need to be of service to my folks, to my people that I work with. I need to help them. I need to guide them, and I need to inspire them to be better each and every day. So I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely does. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And then,
Yeah.
okay, I had one more question for Nick as well.
Yeah.
Nick, I had read like Professor Young gave us like bio or profiles, I guess, on everyone who's coming in. So I obviously read your guys' over. And Nick, one of the things that I read on yours was that after school, you kind of turned down some full-time jobs to be an intern with the Rangers. Can you tell me what that kind of decision was like? And was that a tough decision to kind of choose to intern and try to earn a position there, or what that whole experience was like?
I think most people would look at it as a tough decision. For me, it wasn't at the time, and the reason I say that is because, when you're young and full of life and you don't have any responsibilities, that's the time to take a lot of risks. Not that you can't take risks at an older age, but I'm 43 years old now. I have 2 children, both are in school. I've been married for 17 years, and for me, like, risk is different now. So I have to weigh those things out. I don't want to be moving my kids all over the country, going to different schools. They love the school they're going to. They have established friends. Back then, I had none of those things. And so taking an opportunity for 3 or 4 months to see where it may lead, then knowing that, if these people really want me bad enough, I could go back to that potentially, and I may have ticked them off. They may be disappointed, but if I was really of value enough to them, they would take me back, regardless of me turning them down the first time. So the risk reward, I thought the reward of the whole thing far outweighed what the potential risk would be. And of course, it's paid off long term. And if I'm going to move somewhere and experience something different, there wasn't a better time in my life to do it. And so it really wasn't that hard of a decision at that time.
Totally makes sense. Thank you guys both again. Appreciate
Absolutely.
it. Yeah. Thank you, Matthew.
Hi, Greg and Nick. Hi, how are you guys?
Doing well.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thank you for asking. So my name is Shu Han. I'm currently a senior at Bentley University, major in accounting and minor in finance. So thank you for coming tonight. And my question is, I know you guys are like the strong sales professionals in the sales industry. So my question would be, what is the most effective communication style that you think that from your experience is very useful and efficient, like to share with the class?
Is this to me or Nick or both?
Oh, both.
I think just from my perspective, there's a lot of things going on in our industry, and I think in many different industries, where they're trying to utilize multiple communication styles in order to meet the customers where they are. And I kind of have a funny story for that. Last night, I was hungry, and I get a text from a barbecue place right down the street from my house, and it said, full rack of ribs, $28. So they got where I was at right before Monday Night Football. I wanted some ribs. So, of course, I drove down the street and bought those ribs, right? So that communication style worked. I didn't need a TV ad. I didn't need to see it on YouTube. Boy, it was direct. And we call that in the pharmaceutical industry now omni-channel. It means trying to use text, trying to use emails, trying to use face-to-face communication, multiple areas. And also, of course, we've got the mass communications, which is the TV ads and Facebook stuff and all that other things, all working together, trying to get to as many touches on people as possible. And so the communication styles also that is critical for our industry in the pharmaceutical world. You got to be in front of the customer. You got to be talking to them. You got to be leaving sales pieces. You got to be emailing them. You got to be sending them all kinds of things. You got to be leaving stuff behind. But there's nothing like that face-to-face interaction, that ability to have that discussion, that logical discussion back and forth. And now with mass communications the way they are, so many people don't have that skill. They don't have that skill to have that face-to-face, look somebody in the eye discussion and really have a communication style that works for the customer and works for them to lead to a sale. So I hope that answers your question, and I'm sure Nick can add his point of view on that as well.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
Absolutely couldn't agree
more, Greg. And I think taking that and then let's throw in an inquisitive nature onto the different avenues to communicate. I would say being interested. Great quote from How to Win Friends and Influence People is, how do you become interesting to someone is be interested in them. And so showing a lot of interest and meeting people, again, like Greg said, where they are and how they want to be communicated with is probably the best route to go, no matter what industry you're in. Some people are great face-to-face. Some people are great over text. Some people are great over the phone. Some people are great over email. Master all of those things. Make sure that you're comfortable with all of those things. Some people are good in video emails or video chats. There's a variety of different ways to communicate. Utilize the tools that your company gives you. Master those tools. Be inquisitive. Be someone who is looking to help others achieve the results that they're trying to achieve. If you can do that, you'll be the person that is their go-to person. So the Rangers guy, right? A lot of people, that's my Rangers guy. When I was selling, the biggest compliment that I would get is an unsolicited referral. And once you've done that, then that means you're doing stuff right. And so whenever that random email comes in or that random phone call comes in, it says, you know, Greg gave me your phone number, Nick. I wanted to call. He said you're his Rangers guy. I'm looking for this. Can you help me? I think if you do those things and the referral business starts to come in, then you know for a fact at that point, I don't want to say you've made it, because I don't believe you've ever made it. I always believe there's something else to chase. That's just the nature of my mind. But you really have, in essence, made it, because you are getting the biggest, most important compliment a salesperson can achieve by getting those unsolicited referrals.
Thank you.
How you doing? Thank you both for being here. My name is Lucas Fritchie. I'm a senior here and a marketing major. I think I have a question more aimed towards you, Nick. I know that you have a marketing background, but you have some roles in the past that have you as like training and entry-level salespeople. So I was really wondering, especially with like an organization like the Texas Rangers, like a sports organization with a fan base and everything, how do you look at training salespeople to kind of have like a symbiotic?
Sorry, repeat that last portion. The video kind of cut out.
Just about how you looked at training salespeople, entry-level salesmen, to have like a give and take or like work well with the marketing team, especially for an organization like the Rangers.
Great question. So I will say this. Marketing and sales are two very different things, but they do go hand in hand. I do have a marketing degree. I use none of it. And I think too that does Bentley have a sports sales and a sports sales program or anything like that?
No, I'm seeing no. I don't think so.
Good. Okay. And the reason I say that is I see all of these universities and they're selling their university, right? Well, all of them sell these sports programs, these sports leadership or sports management or sports this or whatever program to their students. Well, it's super sexy, right? However, when you graduate, I'm just going to give you an example, and I'm going to pull these numbers up really fast because I think it's important. It's difficult to get into this industry. And I'm not saying this to discourage anyone, but I want you to know the reality of it. Since I took over the hiring manager role at the end of July, 1st of August of 2014, I have had 2,862 people apply for a job in our entry-level sales program. Out of those 2,800, I've interviewed 362.
Wow.
I've hired 47. So you have about a 12.65% chance of getting an interview. If you get an interview, you got a 12.9% chance of getting hired. But if you just apply, out of all the applicants, you got a 1.6% chance of getting hired here. So I love, and I've hired more people that don't have a sports sales degree or a sport management degree than I have people that have a sport management degree. And the reason I say that is because getting a generalized business degree or a marketing degree or a management degree or something of that nature will benefit you in the long term, because getting a job in the industry and staying in this industry is challenging. And so if you graduate college and you have a sport management degree and you don't get a sports job right away, and now you have to apply for a job with Greg's going to look at that and say, what the heck are you, what am I supposed to do with a sports management degree? And so I'm glad that Bentley doesn't offer that. I think that's wise that they don't, because I think to me, it's just a ploy for universities to gain money, because the amount of experience that kids have coming out of college with those degrees isn't any better than someone who's a general marketing major or a management major or any of those things. For us to answer the question directly, our salespeople really don't interact with marketing. They interact with us. We interact with marketing from a leadership standpoint. So we tell marketing what our people need. We have our leadership institutional knowledge. We have roundtable discussions. We take advice. We have one-on-ones and all the little different things that we do with our reps. We see what the market is doing. We see what people are responding to. Then we communicate. And the reason I say that is you want one unified message going to a department versus a lot of different little messages. So you want to streamline what that interaction looks like. And so you're not going to have a ton of back and forth with them or interaction other than just daily office stuff. But as far as on the business side, it's going to be streamlined through leadership, and then leadership's going to get things implemented with marketing.
Great. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Hello, my name is Katie Fallow. I'm a senior and I'm majoring in marketing with a minor in entrepreneurship. My question is for both of you, and it's, if there's anything that you wish that you could change when you first started your career, what would it be?
That is a great question, Katie. What would I change? Well, it's interesting. You want Nick explain when he got into his industry. I actually applied for my job from a newspaper, so that isn't done anymore. So, and I remember I actually paid, and this was after graduating Bentley. I paid someone else to help me to coach me on how to interview and help me with my resume. Kind of funny because that's what I help other people with now in my side job. But so if it was something I wish I had done sooner, kind of things worked out the way they did. I wish I'd done that sooner. I made mistake after mistake after mistake after mistake, finally learning what it was that these companies wanted, and then realized, hey, at that time, Bentley really didn't prepare me for the real world on what I was supposed to do. And I had to pay it out of my own pocket. I kind of wish I had done it sooner. So there's so many resources, though, available to you that weren't available to me. So you have TikToks, you have YouTubes, you have all kinds of different resources that have even paid services that you can get. LinkedIn Learning, so many different aspects that you guys can learn from. And I would say take full advantage of those. If I was to do anything different, it would be I would do more research, more looking into what my future employer was really looking for versus me kind of guessing.
Yeah, for me, I don't think you can undervalue the learning side of things myself either. I would have read more books. I actually was, I'm not a very good reader. I don't read very fast. I don't always an excuse. And then, it wasn't until I got into leadership before I really made it a priority. And I do read faster now. I comprehend faster. I share a lot of what I read with my staff, and definitely through the training process as I'm training new salespeople. That is one. And I think another, I feel like I always had high character, and I always did things above board. So I wouldn't change that. But at the end of the day, as a new salesperson, I think I would have, found a way to, when I'm tired, to take a break more often. I know that sounds weird, but I think you can't undervalue a little bit more vacation time here and there. And I'm not saying, go and relax and not do the work. I did the work, but I sometimes probably allowed myself to get a little bit burned out. And so I would probably take slightly more time off and utilize that time to rejuvenate myself, so I was more of an asset versus at times getting tired. This industry, and I'm sure the one that Greg's in, will wear you out. Any sales type role will wear you out, but ours is very seasonal. And so, this time last week, I was, we were in the second or third inning of a baseball game. I was waiting to do a presentation out in the ballpark to some of our Lone Star members or season ticket holders to show them our appreciation, and then go home and do it all over again. I think back in the day, I probably would have taken a little bit more vacation time in the off season.
Okay. I also have a follow-up question for Nick. Do you have any book recommendations that would be beneficial for us?
Gosh, there's I probably have 80 books in my office. Books that I really like. I've already mentioned it, How to Win Friends and Influence People. If you haven't read it, I believe it is a must read. I like a lot of different sales books. I've read multiple sales books throughout. Anything Jeffrey Gitomer writes, I think, is quality, because it really is. It's like he says, the red meat. You can actually read it and immediately implement that into what you're doing every day. Another book that I just read is called The New Model of Selling by Jerry Acuff and Jeremy Miner. Really good book. I know Jerry from doing this, great human being, and a guy that I think is always trying to be on the cutting edge and learning and growing. And there's no the way to sell, but there's always a way, and the a way is always different depending on who you're selling to. I think another couple good books that I would recommend, a friend of mine named Rod Olson has written 3 books, one of which is called The Legacy Builder. Another is called The Wisdom Lunch Warrior. And then the last one is called The Greatest Motivational Tool. And they're all leadership-based books. They're about how to grow and be a great leader. And then another book that I really love is called The Go-Giver. All of them are very fable-written books. I love reading that type of leadership or that type of business book or sales book where you're actually kind of reading and getting into a story. Another book I just read recently is called The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. And it is a really, really strong book if you plan or desire to be in leadership one day. That's just a few. I mean, I could probably have Tex Zev 1,000 books. But that's just a few that I think are really, really strong books. And I know I'm leaving some out.
Thank you. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Kylie McCumber. I'm a senior here at Bentley, majoring in marketing with a minor in Spanish. Right now I'm working full-time in the medical device biotech realm, which is a big industry of change all the time, and seeing the similarities of that and the constant change within both your industries. What would you recommend for someone kind of being in a busy industry like that to be open and adaptable to change, whether it's positive for the company or negative for the company?
Well, I think I'll bring up a book Nick didn't, which is Who Moved My Cheese? So if you really want to learn about change, read that book. It's a book it's a story. So it's a really enjoyable read too, and you'll get the gist of it when you read it. But adapting to change, I think, in just about every industry is going to be so important for you when you graduate, or all the people in this class when you graduate, when you go on to from one business to another. It's always changing, and you always need to be prepared. And so what I often tell people too is, find other things beyond the job that you love to do, and you never know, that could become a job for you. My daughter, who actually did work for the Texas Rangers, I don't know if you know this, Nick, but she has a TikTok called Dallas Hotspots, and the Texas Rangers hired her to go to a game and video and do the TikTok, and they paid her and they gave her tickets and they gave us food and drinks and everything. But that came of something that she just loved to do, which is go to restaurants. And so she started herself. Now she's got that gave her a job with a public relations firm in Dallas. And Now she makes just as much money on the side as she does in her regular job. So that all came from being adaptable, from just doing something you love and making something out of it. So I know a lot of people, their first reaction to change or their first reaction to something going on is, oh no, and they think about the worst. And one of the best books I ever read was Life Strategies by Dr. Phil. And Dr. Phil's personality is, hey, everything's your fault. So if you take everything from the idea of everything's your fault, then you can figure out a solution to what's going on and how you can come out of that and make it better. So that's at least some of the things that I would recommend for how do you adapt to change, but always look for, hey, what's the good in this versus what's the bad. Nick, anything else?
Yeah, I think it's 1000% all mindset. Mindset. Yeah. And another book that I'll throw out there too is Mindset by Carol Dweck. It talks about growth mindset versus fixed mindset, right? And it really compares a lot of not famous athletes, musicians, and a variety of other people who have failed in life in many cases because of their fixed mindset. I kind of am the school of thought where if you're not growing, you're regressing. There's no standing still. And so you might as well look at something just, we all put our shoes on the same way, some left first, some right first, but we all put them on the same way, right? And so if someone else can overcome a challenge, we can do it too. And it's just making sure that we assess our mindset on a day in and day out standpoint, think positively, find a way to think positively. We started a book club here with the Rangers, and a book that I haven't read that we are about to read is going to be The Power of Positive Thinking by Norman Vincent Peale. Haven't read it yet. I've heard nothing but great things. It's an old book, but I would love to, or I guess I should say I'm excited to dive into it. One quote that I think I'll add into that, I don't know if you know much about Jocko Willink, but former Navy SEAL. He's written several leadership books, but one thing that he says, and I've got it on my wall over here, once people stop making excuses, stop blaming others, and take ownership for everything in their lives, they're compelled to take action to solve their problems. I think if you have that mindset, when things shift on you or change on you, you're going to be more prepared. And every single time something like that happens, the pivot you make is a learning opportunity. And if you look at it that way, you're going to be in the right spot, because the only, really certain things are changes, death, and taxes. So you might as well get ready and buckle up and rock and roll.
Great. Thank you both very much.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Julia Spadalek. I'm a senior at Bentley. I'm a management major with a minor in law, and I'm very interested in real estate, which obviously has to do a lot with sales. So I was wondering what the best advice is that you have to build really good relationships within sales.
What was the last part of that?
To build really good relationships within sales, like strong relationships with others.
I think Nick said it before. You just got to be really interested and truly interested and inquisitive with other people, and make it all about, like when I coach my salespeople and we're about to go in to talk to a doctor, and I'll ask them what's their plan. If their plan revolves around what's important to them and whether they're going to make their bonus or not, whether they're going to, hit their numbers, or anything else about that associated with themselves, I'm like, you're on the wrong track, right? Because nobody really cares about what you think until you care about them, right? So you've got to really, really, truly learn about other people, get to know them, get to know what makes them tick, get to know why they make the decisions they make. And you can't fake it. If you try and go in with a canned, oh, I memorized this question and I'm going to ask it, people are going to see right through you. So, and especially in real estate where Nick mentioned it already, referrals are just huge in that industry. I have friends that have transitioned from pharmaceuticals because they didn't like the fact that they were getting laid off all the time. So they transitioned into real estate, which has its own challenges. But they've been really, really successful. I mean, tops of their areas. And I'm talking about somebody in Orlando, Florida with 50,000 realtors, and this person's in the top 10. And she transitioned from pharmaceuticals over to that 15 years ago, and now she's one of the best. It's because she truly cares about people and cares about making friends and also using those relationships. A lot of people will make relationships, but they won't use them. You always got to ask somebody, hey, who else do you know? Who else can I talk to? Who else can maybe be interested in what I've got? And then it's one thing to make relationships, another thing to use them and to use them positively. I had a neighbor who worked in finance, and he wanted to he worked in investments. He never asked me ever whether I was interested in investments, and I probably would have talked to him about it, but he just never asked.
Thank you very much. That was very interesting.
Yeah, she just blew you off.
That's okay. I'm used to it. I'm just kidding.
How are you both?
How's it
Good.
going?
How are you?
Doing all right. My name is Chris. I'm a senior here at Bentley. I have a major in management and a minor in finance. Ideally, I want to go into sales after school. I was wondering, you both talked about your experience within interviews for these sales positions. What is your best piece of advice for us going into these sales interviews? And what are some things that you think we should steer clear from during the interviews?
I'm not an interview
Again,
but I just to kind of right off the top, I would say, dress for the job you want, not the job you have. Make sure that you go in buttoned up, clean cut, look sharp. Make sure your resume is simplified. In my opinion, and again, I'm not an expert resume writer by any means like Greg is, but your resume should be a pamphlet for you to storytell in the interview and tell who you are and what these things on this pamphlet mean to you and what they could mean to your potential employer. Sit up tall, don't fidget, lean in. Whenever you get a great question, be enthusiastic about it, and really hone in on the special parts of you that make you the best candidate. And then I think one thing to kind of end is go in with legitimate questions that you want answered. I think, in my opinion, it's a minimum of 5 questions. It may, maybe 4, maybe 6. And some of the things that come up in the interview may be questions you also want to tack on and use and flip the script. When I interview people, I'm very conversational, and I try, because I want to get to know who they are, not what their resume says, because I don't care what their resume says. I want to know the person that I'm about to hire, because I have a culture to protect, and I want them to be a good fit into that culture. And as far as asking the interviewer questions, you got to do research. If you walk in here and you ask me where I went to school or how long I've been with the Rangers or what positions I've held with the Rangers, I'm going to think that you're basically just skimming by and not really interested in the position. What's impressive is whenever you say, Nick, I've seen that you've been with the Rangers for 20 years and you've held multiple positions. I've heard that in the sports industry, people move around a lot to seek leadership positions faster. What made you stay with the organization as long as you have, and in essence, wait to get that leadership position? So deeper seated question means that you've done your research, because you're trying to be a salesperson, right?
Yep.
Deeper seated questions so that you can really, really hone in on who you're about to work for. Those things will make you impressive, in my opinion.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah. And to add on to what Nick said, if you notice the question that he said you should ask at the end there, one that would be interesting to Nick was, it was interesting that question was actually about Nick. So the more you can ask people about themselves during the interview, not stuff they should already know that they could find out on LinkedIn, but those deeper questions, like he said, what made you wait? What was that deep down? How did you do that? Things like that. But there's also, I mean, I wrote books on this, so there's a million things I could tell you, right? So there's my book that sells the most is Acing the Sales Interview, and I'm coming out with a fourth edition soon. But the one thing that's made the most difference, and I've done probably 5 or 6 different podcasts, but the one thing that you should do is when you walk into that interview, all the things that Nick said to do is great. When you get in there, there's going to be some chit chat time. Hey, how'd you get here? How's the weather? Da da da. Before you start out, and they're going to say to you, hey, on this interview, this is what the process is going to be. We're going to review your resume. I'm going to probably ask you a few questions, and I'll leave you time to ask questions. And what you want to say is, yeah, great. Hey, but before we get started, do you mind if I ask you a quick question? Now, what people forget is to ask that buffer question, that first part. Hey, do you mind if I ask you a question? Sometimes in sales, that's a good technique to use, but in interviews, it's great because of course they're going to say yes. They're going to be nice to you. And they're going to say, yeah, sure. What is it? And now you've got them thinking, oh, wait a minute. Most people don't do this. They just go into telling me about their resume. You go, what was it about my resume or my background that made you even want to talk to me today, or that makes me sit here today? And you will get a ton of information from all of that. And the reason, and that also can set you up for the end of the interview, because whatever they say, you should either remember or write it down. And at the end, after you've just had the whole interview process, you then can go back to that question, and the interviewer will be really impressed that you're tying in the front to the end. Because what you want to say is, and you're about to close, is you always want to close for whatever that next step is. So if the next step is to talk to the VP or one of their colleagues, you're going to ask, what's the next step in the process? They're going to tell you. And you say, okay, well, that's great. But I have another question for you. You told me when we first started this interview that the reason why I was sitting here was because of A, B, and C. It shows that you were listening, right? Then you ask, well, what additional skills or maybe qualities have I displayed that now makes me an even better candidate to now go talk to your boss or to go talk to that other person than when we first started out this conversation? What have you learned about me that makes me qualified to go do that now? Right. So now you wait, and they're going to give you the answer to that question. If you didn't do well in the interview, they're going to say nothing, that you're not moving forward. Right. But if you did, if there are some things that you did well, they're going to tell you, and you go, well, that's great. It sounds like we're on the same page. Hey, can we set that interview up right now? That now you've got a close to go on because they just told you how well you did. Right. So all of that little technique, it pays huge dividends, and you got to be able to do it in a way that sounds right. And all the other things that Nick said. And there's also a technique, although we use it in the pharmaceutical industry, where we ask people to tell stories about what they've done. Right. And then we ask for it in a STAR example: situation, task, action, result. So you learn how to do that STAR method as well. And I'm going to throw on some other thing that Nick said too. He talked about research. In my book, I talk about really researching a company. And I mean, if they're a publicly traded company, get on Yahoo Finance or CBS or whatever finance site you use and look up what the company's worth is, right? Look up what their debt is. Look up what their stock price is. Look up how much cash they have on hand. I've talked more people out of interviewing, I think, than interviewing for a company, because I'll look at them, or I'll be coaching them and say, well, you know, you're going to go on this interview. Have you researched their finances? And they're like, no, what are you talking about? So we go on and I walk them through what the things that we're looking at, and you can tell what the cash flow is. And if a company is burning $1 million a month and they only have $5 million in the bank, well, guess what? In 5 months, they're done. They're over. But somebody goes, wait a minute, why would they be hiring? Because the lower level guys, they don't know all that stuff. All right, so you should definitely be looking at stuff up.
Will do. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Emma Donahue. I'm a senior marketing major here. I'm also a student athlete here, so I understand the grind. But I just want to know, what do you love most about sales and your job every day?
Man, I think for me, it's the people, and it's being around people and making a difference. I'll say from a management or leadership standpoint, there's nothing more rewarding than taking someone from zero, hiring them and them being fresh, and then seeing them work the plan that you give them, get promoted, get married, buy a house, have a kid, buy a house, get married, have a kid, buy a new car, and really provide for themselves a nice life, and make a great living doing this job.
Yeah. I think for me, it's I love the interaction with my folks. I've done a lot of different jobs in this industry. I've been a rep. I've been in managed care. I've been in government affairs. I've been in marketing. I've been a regional director over 100 people. I came back to being a manager again because I missed being one-on-one with my salespeople and in front of the customer. I realized that's what I love the most. It's that interaction, it's that interpersonal relationships, it's getting to know people, getting to know what makes them tick, and knowing that you've made a positive influence on their life. And for us in healthcare, we know that the products that we sell help people. I mean, Nick does entertainment, right? That helps people. People love the Rangers. They love to come out there, right? So for me, it encompasses all of it. I get to do something I love and get paid to do it. So for me, it's not even like a job.
That's good. Thank you. And then I know that you both love books. Like you mentioned them a lot. So I don't know if you've read it, but the book Outliers, I feel like it's a good one. So I recommend that.
Outliers? Is that the name of it?
Outliers, Malcolm
Outliers.
Gladwell.
Yeah. That's a good one.
Hello, I'm Haider and I'm a senior at Bentley and I'm majoring in
Nice to meet
management and I plan on entering the clothing industry after I graduate. So my question is directed towards Nick, and I would want to know what strategies have you implemented to increase ticket retention and attract new business for the Texas Rangers? And do you have any, and please mention some failed strategies, if any.
Failed strategies? Oh gosh. Let me give some examples. And a failed strategy is not paying attention. That is not making your people, not from a sales standpoint, but from a ticket holder standpoint, feeling like there's value in them spending money here, and not recognizing them, not communicating well with them. And while there's probably a million different ways to go about that, the strategy that I've used, because when I moved into the role that I'm in now, these people didn't feel very valued. And so I've made a point, I'm not going to say all 81 home games, but most games I spend time in the concourse walking around, and I find holes or gaps to fill. I find people who are looking lost, or people that are angry, or there's situations going on, and I insert myself to try to help improve their experience. I work hand in hand with our guest services people to find ways to make our seasonal employees feel valued, because if they feel valued, then it trickles down to the fan, right? I spend a lot of time at our season ticket sales booth. I write most of the content that we're sending out to our Lone Star members or our season ticket holders from an information standpoint. We created a Lone Star member newsletter that goes out before every homestand that is informative, that tells them gate times and special things they need to pay attention to, or of upcoming events. I think communicating well, being present, and I also am one, which wasn't done very often in the past, when a problem happens, I get on it. I make the phone call to them, or I meet them face to face, or I make the phone call to them, and then I plan on meeting them face to face at the game next time they're out here. I think attacking a situation versus letting it linger or not even addressing it at all. And I can't fix everything, and there's some things we don't want to fix, but being present, being available, being out in the ballpark, hanging out with the boots on the ground, those are the things that make people feel valued. We just did Lone Star Member Appreciation Week, which is something that I came up with this year. And every single game, we honored 6 Lone Star members. There's almost 3,000 different accounts that qualify as Lone Star members. So we did a very small number of people, but then we included discounts for additional discounts for food and beverage, additional discounts for merchandise, and we did a whole bunch of sweepstakes prizes, and none of those recognitions overlapped. So we were able to touch a lot more people, and little by little, spending time with them, shaking their hand, thanking them, addressing their issues, even if we're not fixing it, we're at least giving the context behind it. That is the formula to making people feel valued and keeping them here.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Nick. Thank you so much, Greg. Thank you for both your times.
Yeah.
Hey guys, my name's Nick. I'm a junior, majoring in management, minoring in psychology. I was just wondering, Greg, so I saw you majored in management. I want to know how well like the skills from your management degree translated to sales.
I don't know if they translated well to sales. It was interesting when I got out, I went to work with my father, and he owned a flower business, and it was we ended up parting ways after a few years because working with family just doesn't work. But at least it didn't for us. But I actually used a ton of the skills that Bentley taught me, because we did a lot of seasonal things, whether it was Valentine's Day or Easter or Christmas. We had a lot of production stuff that went on. So I used a lot of my management skills that I learned to maximize and increase our production and lower our costs. So that really helped me out a lot. I'm using though more of, I think, a lot of the skills I learned at Bentley to run my own stuff versus what I do from a management side of the pharmaceutical industry. We have so many resources at our company. We're constantly learning and constantly doing things that I don't remember a lot of the things that I learned at Bentley, but I do remember some of those other things, especially from an entrepreneurial standpoint. And I'm like Nick, I'm constantly learning, constantly growing. I never think I'm there. But I think a lot of it is have the attitude of, well, what can you learn from everything you're doing right now, but have that mindset of never to stop learning, because you're probably going to forget 90% of the things that you're learning at Bentley right now, but you're not going to forget the effort that you put in, and then how you can maybe look for things, how you can make them fit into something that you're doing maybe today or maybe tomorrow. I don't know if that answers your question, but I did take a lot, but there were many things that I just forgot about.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Ashley. I'm a senior here. I'm a marketing major and IDCC minor. Greg, my dad is also a Bentley alum, graduated in '94 though, so 1 year after you.
Okay.
But my question so I'm a senior, so I'm going into the applying for jobs and going into the real world soon. And I know, Greg, you have a lot of knowledge about how to gain that first dream job and everything, and then Nick, you've been on the other end of it, like the hiring aspect and who gets that job in the end. So I guess, what is one way that I can differentiate myself from other people that are applying for marketing jobs? I know Boston has a ton of incredible schools in the area, so I think the job it's going to be very competitive to get that job. So I guess just one way I can differentiate myself.
I think, and it's just something I use when I coach people all the time, is it's about being memorable. So for instance, when somebody says walk through your resume, I already told you a little technique about asking that question up front. But when you actually go to walk through your resume, have a story about yourself, and don't just, oh, I did this job, then I did this job, that people can read, right? So what I tell people to do is tell them something that's not on your resume. So when you start out and talk to them, I tell people, hey, before I go through my resume, is it okay if I just tell a little bit about myself and tell you some things that aren't on my resume, and that people see to perk up because all they hear all day long is somebody just walking through it. And I just say, hey, I'm probably one of the most competitive people you're ever going to meet. Right. So that's not on my resume. Right. And I said, I'm so competitive that when my 4 kids were growing up, I never let them win anything. And my wife would get mad at me all the time. So I try to tell a little joke in there. Right. And so I said, but they're better for it now. Right. I said, but also my mom was a nurse. My grandfather was a chemist and my dad was a sales guy. I was like Dr. Frankenstein. They built me to do this job. Right. So in telling myself and my story like that, I become memorable. And so when I got my current job I'm in right now, I always ask whoever hires me, hey, why did you hire me? The first thing he said was, you were memorable. Well, I said, really, how? He goes, my mom was a nurse. And all of a sudden we had a connection, right? My mom was a nurse. His mom's a nurse. I didn't know that going in, but because I told my story, he remembered it. And he goes, and I also remember about, your grandfather being the chemist. And I mean, it was unbelievable. He knew my whole story. So people remember stories and they don't remember facts, right? So I would say if you've got a story about yourself, and as strange as it may sound sometimes, some of the strangest stories are the best. So if you have a strange one, even better. So I don't know. I'll hand it over to Nick and see what he has to think about this.
First advice, don't go get a marketing job, get a sales job. Secondarily, just kidding, do what you want and be happy. But Greg is spot on. And I'm going to tell a quick story because it will really just pile on to what he's saying. I've only hired a full staff at one time. Every other time it's been one person up to maybe 3 people at a time based on promotions and, eliminations and things like that. Also, one thing to remember, you do not get fired, you fire yourself. Like there should be no question. Like if you get fired, you should look at that and say, yep, I did that myself, because companies aren't going to fire good employees ever. Now, I hired a group of 8. We were the first sports team to hire following the pandemic. And I will never forget sitting in the room training these people in their first 2 weeks before we got them on the phone to sell a new ballpark that would be officially opening for the first time. And at one point they were asking some questions and I looked at all of them dead serious and named the reason I hired each one of them, just like what Greg said. I hired you because you did this, this, and this. I hired you because you did this and you did this. And you at the dark hour wrote me an email the day before decision day for me that was memorable to me. And I knew that if you would jump on that, then you could be a great salesperson. And that, so each one of them, I told them a story as to why I hired them. So that is the best advice that anyone could ever give you, is be memorable.
Thank you. And thank you guys so much for coming here today.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Hello, how are we? Doing good still?
How are you?
Good, thank you. Nice to meet you. My name is Anna Seth Stone. I'm a senior here at Bentley, which is very bittersweet, but I'm majoring in information design and corporate communication with a minor in marketing. And like yourselves, I'm very passionate about connecting authentically with people, positivity, and adopting a growth mindset, like you both mentioned. And I was wondering, in terms of interpersonal and personal relationships, or amongst yourselves in your own business or personal life, how do you approach goal setting and how do you embody that growth mindset day in and day out?
You want to take it first?
Yeah, let me go 2 different things. I'm going to tell you about goal setting from an actual company standpoint, and then goal setting from a personal standpoint. From a company standpoint, we just break down what ownership's expectations are, what's realistic. We come to a decision, and then we break those numbers across the staff. And the easiest way to do it is say, okay, this group produced this amount of revenue in this category, 50%, 60%, whatever it is. So then I take 50, 60% of that new goal and divide it by the number of people in that group, and then that's their goal. And we do that across each category: seasons, groups, suites, etc. And then what we're going to do from an individual ticket basis. So that's really straightforward and easy. It's just breaking it down across your number of people and what your expectations are. From personal goal setting, I'm a micro guy goal. I'm not a grandioso goal guy. Like, I never looked at this and said, I want to be a VP with the Rangers. I looked at this and said, what can I do today to be valuable for the Texas Rangers? And what can I sell today to take this trip? What can I sell today to do this for my family? What can I do today to impact the life of one of my employees? Like, daily little micro goals that don't change ever, that are always there. And then once I achieve a certain level that I want to be at, maybe it's, a financial level, it's what I'm making year in and year out. I will then set a new smaller goal that's achievable, SMART goals, if you will, and go attack that. And I'm of the school of thought that if you set these micro goals and you go achieve them, then you're going to be blessed and end up where you should be versus sometimes where you always want to be. I think a lot of people put one big goal up there and they don't know how to get there because that's all they're racing for, and they don't have anything between it. And so I just set a whole bunch of between goals, and heck, I've ended up in a really good spot.
Yeah, and I'll add on to what Nick said. I think we both went to the same. I think you went to Bentley, Nick, with us. I'm the same thought. It's amazing that if you just do the little things well each and every day, good things are going to happen. So I had someone work for me who was a 4-time President's Club winner, and somebody said, "Oh, how is she so good?" I said, "Because she did the little things well. Everything that nobody else wants to do anymore, she does, and she does them to perfection. And they're not little things to her. So it's like everything she does, it's for a purpose, but it's, hey, what am I going to do this minute, this hour?" I wrote an article on LinkedIn on my profile that says results orient. I think the title is results orientation's a myth, because I'm not, or results focused is a myth. It's because I'm not results focused. I'm moment focused. So I'm focused on the moment that I'm in, and I have to do it to my best ability. Just like Nick said, I had a great leader who once told me, he said, fully develop in your role and great things will come. And you might think you want that, like Nick, you said, you may think you want that one job, but more than likely you probably don't. You have no idea what it's about. Fully develop in your role, and the people that want you on their team are going to come after you.
Yep. One thing I have, this popped in my mind. I have to throw it out there. If I don't, I think I'm letting you all down. Think about the greatest athletes of all time, the Hall of Famers, right? The Tony Gwynns, the
Tom Brady. They're in Boston.
Hungry, number one.
Tom Brady.
Tom Brady. Hungry, number one. But they fell in love with what? They fell in love with boring. And because they fell in love with the boring things, the monotonous things, the little teeny things that everybody's like, oh, that's not that important. I won't make those extra 5 calls that I'm supposed to make or need to make. I won't send that extra email today. I'll get to it later. It'll all fall together. And then they go home. Fall in love with boring.
Thank you. I'll take that with me. Thanks for being here tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Brady.
Strong here, guys. How you doing?
How are you?
I appreciate you guys skipping Monday Night Football to come talk to us tonight. Just really quick, a question for you, Greg. What are some common difficulties you see from like a usual student coming looking for your services as far as like interview help, and some pitfalls maybe we can avoid?
And I'll be 100% honest. I don't really coach a lot of students. So, and I've been asked to do a lot of student resumes, and I always tell people, I'm not your guy. That's just not my wheelhouse. And I'm not a resume. I tell people all the time, I'm not a resume writer. I'm a resume reader. So I know what I like, and I know where I like to have it. And I just have a knack for where to put stuff and how to say it. So from a resume standpoint, I'm terrible with new students. So But now for interviewing, that's a whole different story. I don't even do much interview coaching anymore. I now have a partner because I'm so busy with my resumes. I have a partner that I've known for 20 some odd years, and I push everybody to her. But I still have that mindset. I still have the skill set. I'm still writing another book on it. And what you're everything's about, I think, in life is you have to have a plan. So many people I see in my industry, I don't know about you, Nick, when you're interviewing people, is they wing it. They just think, oh, I've done this before. I know how to interview. This is no problem. But they have no plan. They have no strategy. One of the things that I teach in my book is asking really good questions. Like Nick even said, have a good set of questions prepared, but have a strategy for going in of how you're going to take that first phone call from the recruiter. How are you going to open up? How are you going to take it over? Like I said earlier, hey, stop them before it starts. Can I ask you a quick question before we start? That takes them back. You're already automatically going to be remembered. Then have a story about yourself. Then be prepared. Look up all the questions that you could potentially be asked for the interview. Practice on a video on your own phone. Record yourself. Hey, how do I sound? Am I using a lot of ahs, ums, you knows, likes? Remove those from your vernacular. So many people. I have a sales rep. I had to finally say, "Do you know how many times you say you know?" He's like, he goes, oh, my wife's been telling me that all the time. I go, you could be 10 times more influential if you just remove the you knows, because they're getting in the way of you being really, really effective. Now he doesn't do it at all anymore. So, and his numbers are great. Now, I don't know if that was it, but it's little things like that that could make a huge difference. As Nick already said, dress for the role you are, don't dress for the role you want, dress for the next one. So it's all about being prepared. It's all about doing the research. I used to be terrified of public speaking. Then I took a public speaking course at Bentley, actually, because I was terrified of it. And that helped me. Right? It helped me get through my fears. And then I became really good at it. And one of my jobs at one of my old companies was to speak in front of legislatures. And I was able to speak in front of people with a lot higher degrees than me without issue, because I faced my fears. So what a lot of people say, I get nervous during interviews. I said, well, if you want to be in sales, you better get good at it, else you're never going to get a job in sales if you're nervous. I hope that helps. Nick, you got any?
Yeah, every sales interaction is an interview. They're interviewing you. They trust you and want to buy from you, and give their hard-earned money, whether it's a personal decision or their company's money if it's a professional decision. Also from an interviewing and a preparation standpoint, I had a kid. I do a lot of Zoom interviews. I had a young man. I started tallying it. He said right over 100 times in this hour interview. And whenever he didn't get the job, I will give you feedback. And I told him that, you know what? He was very thankful for it. Yep. Right. And he kept saying, right.
Right.
You know what I mean? Right. You know, right. Right. And I'm like, I'm going to choke the right out of you. If your voice and your demeanor and recording yourself is a beautiful way to do this. If it sucks to you, it sucks to me. And I hate to put it that way, but if you are cringing at your own presentation, imagine how I'm thinking about you. Prepare, prepare, prepare. P to the sixth power. I said this in Zev's class last time. P to the sixth power. Prior preparation prevents piss poor performance.